welcome to Flipping Dreams. Today I get to chat with my friend Sidney. She is a software engineer, amazing coach, and she is out there reaching out to folks, helping to encourage others to take the dive, take the plunge into tech, and to not be afraid of what they don't know, to not be afraid of this space that perhaps might seem really intimidating at first. So we are going to explore Sydney's background, and then we're going to flip it. She's going to actually ask me questions about my background, and then we get to share with you how we know each other and answer a bunch of questions that we've received on Twitter about being a woman in tech and how to navigate. So I hope you enjoy this. It's a deeper dive, talking tech with Sidney Buckner. You're listening to Flipping Dreams. Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah,
But
I'm so excited to talk to you.
we get to talk a lot anyway. So,
Yeah,
I mean, this is like twice in 1 month. So that is different. That is
just
cool.
a little bit, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So how do we want to start? Do we want to start with maybe you telling listeners a little bit about your journey into tech, um, how you got started. How did you become a software engineer?
Yeah, sure. So, I am Sydney. Hello, podcast world. I've never actually been on a podcast before, so this is kind of cool. So, hi there. Hi, Mom. I don't know if she's listening. So I am now a software engineer in web services for a technology company. I am a YouTuber as well as a consultant. I do a lot of calls where I help mentor people figure out what exactly they want to do when it comes to beginning how to code, figuring out what their next kind of transition is in their journeys in tech. And so that has been kind of a whirlwind kind of going into 2020. And I'm so happy and so grateful that I've been able to do this. But my origins, how I got started, let's see. I had actually started learning how to code maybe 5 years ago. It's been. I went to a private university. I decided that instead of going for biology and chemistry like my original major was, I had two choices. I had a very interesting thing happen. You can go see on my YouTube channel about it. But I had finally had an epiphany where having to go into the medical field was not something that I wanted to do. I thought that I was going to be a doctor, and I was just like, nope, can't do that anymore. I had two choices. I was in the arts and sciences department, and I was thinking, okay, so I really like English. I really like reading books. I like writing fan fiction, all that fun stuff. So I could do that and figure out what else I want to do from there. Or I can go into what are the basics of computer science in the arts and sciences department. Turns out I had decided to go with English because I didn't have enough credits to graduate in 4 years if I decided to go on the computer science track. So I was like, no, I can't do this. I had been in English rhetoric for maybe about 2 years with my college major, and my senior year of college, I had to do my capstone project. And this is kind of a weird like way to get into like coding and everything, but as I was writing my paper, my capstone project paper, I had wanted to like display all of my information, all of these findings on a website. So I was like, okay, let me just like find a site where I can just make something. So I had Wix. I started messing around with the HTML and CSS and was like, oh, I really like this. And then going into after I graduated, I had started looking at like other like small classes, like small boot camps. I had paid for a couple of them and just really liked what was going on. But um, yeah, it was just kind of a back and forth where it was just like, oh, I'm just gonna like go and wander off and do something else. And then coding was like, nope, here you are. Like, come back. We miss you so
And
much.
yeah, and now is it something that like were you sort of interested in development anyway before you decided that, the road to becoming a doctor was not like going to happen? Or was this
That's
just
the
like how
thing.
did that even become an option versus and then English? I love the going into it from a creative background because a lot of people think that tech isn't creative. It's actually really creative. So,
100%. And I think that's why I was so like drawn to it. And so, no, like there, like I was like, what am I like? Am I going to be sitting like I thought I was going to be sitting in a basement and like being on my computer for like 12 hours a day, like the very stereotypical like look of a developer is what like I was thinking that I was going to be if I like decided to do that. I had no clue about anything tech, engineering, anything. I just knew that, ooh, like that made a lot of money and like that seems like pretty fun if you're able to like do a couple of things, but I had no clue
which to be
about
honest, I mean,
anything.
and that's a fair entry point too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking at careers that are lucrative, right?
Yeah,
Like you can still make a
100%.
difference and make money. So I
Yeah.
think I think that this idea that we're supposed to be completely 100% altruistic is not reality. And
No,
so,
I think that you have to realize I really don't like this notion of like being humble is being like just broke, just like in that like certain realm of like always having to think in like a poverty mindset. And like we can talk more philosophy about uh, just
oh,
there can be a whole like
I just
thing.
downloaded the abundance mindset and I'm like
Yes.
really getting into this whole like really capture the yeah, that could be a whole nother
Yeah.
topic to
And
discuss.
like it's just it's very amazing what like people teach us about like how money is just so like that is evil, but you need it, but you don't really need it, you don't need too much of it because you'll like become this fat greedy pig. And I just like being able to pay my bills every month. you
Exactly.
know I just want to be able to pay my bills every month and pay to make sure that I can get the student loan away from me, and I am okay with buying myself a couple of nice things, maybe more than that every month, and nice food. And just I can't say that I understand that mentality, but yeah, that is definitely a part of why I decided, oh, like this is an interesting like path, like why don't I try it? Like that wasn't the only reason, but I had to really sit down with myself after I made the decision to start working into getting into tech to be okay with wanting more money. And that was super hard. That was so hard.
It is. There's actually I felt a lot of guilt once I hit six figures. It was like,
Guilt.
yeah. And mind you, now I my student loan is six figures too.
Right.
So I should
Yeah.
have been the doctor. I don't know. But yeah. But it's all relative.
Yeah.
But there is something built in where you feel like, oh no, have I somehow sacrificed or am I somehow
Mm-hmm.
not doing, living up to some moral, some creed that may or may not really fit the lifestyle, anyway.
Exactly.
It is okay. So let's flip back because we could keep
Yeah.
going on. That's a whole nother thing. So you decided you were looking at boot camps,
Mm-hmm.
and now this is something that a lot of people may or may not know that are listening. I did a show about this, the first podcast, but
Yeah.
about like entry points to tech are usually either a CS degree, which is a 4 year
Right.
degree
Right.
or more, or these boot camps that are online or in person. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did a boot camp as well. We did different boot camps. I'd love to
Yes.
hear about your experience with that.
Yeah, and so before like I even start, anybody that wants to hear like way more details about the coding boot camps that I went to, they can go to my YouTube channel because I actually just dropped a new video on that. I had a bunch of people uh, lately just been asking me questions about the boot camps that I did attend, but for just like a high overview. I had these were two in-person boot camps that I'm just going to highlight because there are plenty of classes and courses and like smaller online boot camps that I had taken, had attended. I had gotten mentorship help and whatnot, but the two boot camps that I distinctly remember having to like go to, one was a boot camp for 10 weeks. We were going at night for 3 hours a night. What is it? 5 days a week? I believe it was 5 days a week. And that was in, goodness, that was May of 2018. No, it was March. Excuse me. It was March of 2018 when I went, and I graduated from that boot camp, I believe in July. And then the previous one, the one before that, I had done maybe 3 or 4 years prior. It was a part of another nonprofit organization that's around the St. Louis area that teaches adults how to code. And so I had went there to their courses. It was one night a week for about a year. And they had just so many distinct differences, just kind of off the top of my head. Of course, the timeline is one of them, but the way that they had the coursework set up was incredibly different as well. What I really loved about both of them is that I was getting a sense of community. I was finding people, specifically women, that really just was motivated. They wanted to figure out like what they wanted to do when it came to coding, even if it was just like the basics of it so they can get into like user experience designing or data science or just something that was tech, that was something structured in IT, was just very rewarding. There were great things about both of these boot camps. I was able to collaborate a lot when it came to smaller projects. I was able to help people kind of honestly start pointing them in the right direction on what like else they wanted to do, because I had vetted so many courses before these two boot camps. It's hilarious. Now I'm doing it and people are paying me for it. So what I didn't love about them, because we have to be honest here, you need to make sure that you're vetting these boot camps in every way, form, and fashion before you even decide to apply. What I didn't love about them was that the one boot camp that was one night a week for a year, we had a lot of unique courses. So you had a lot of unique like web development paths, and a lot of the curriculum was custom made by like the volunteer teacher. And so there was a lot of gaps I felt like that I had in my knowledge. And sometimes that wasn't like the greatest. I had to kind of go like the extra mile to go find out the answers on my own. And because of that, it was very hard to collaborate with other people that were on like other like paths, like other development paths. It was a huge classroom setting as well. So I remember there was like 25, 30 people like in my little group. And so it was great at the time where like I was kind of chugging along and getting things done. But then like when I had questions, it was like, oh my goodness, like the instructor is like focusing on somebody else. And that was incredibly difficult to get people's attention. Now with the other more short intensive boot camp, what I didn't love about that one is that there was so much piled in the curriculum at one time. And not only were we like obligated to like just make sure that we had these projects done for what was our demo day, where we had like displayed what our projects were, it just felt like there were some things that I wish that we would have focused more on, and then things that I wish that we focused less on. But what was great about both of these places is that I started really understanding the tips and tricks and little shortcuts that I needed to actually succeed in being a developer and being able to solve my own problems a little bit better, and then to collaborate in an agile space. I really wouldn't have known what to do in my job collaboration wise if I hadn't gone to those two boot camps. So I'm incredibly grateful. There's definitely things that I wish had changed at the time, but I know that giving my feedback, being very vocal about it, I know that that's changed. So I'm so glad about that, and congratulations to them.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
I think it's really hard, there are so many different types of boot camps
Yeah.
and like programs,
Yeah.
and tech is also it's like a
Moving
moving
target.
target. Yeah.
It's a
So
target.
like,
You're trying to hit it and it's just like,
yeah, and so
man.
they're constantly trying to update what they're
Hmm.
trying to teach.
Hmm.
Um, and like something that might have compiled just fine like a
Yep.
week ago is now broken because dependencies have changed or
Yep.
whatever. And like, um, yeah, I definitely my boot camp was online and it was
Yeah.
like 14 weeks. It was two full stacks. It was like front end
Yeah.
stuff and then two full stacks. And it was without any background. It was very tough.
Yeah.
It was, they call it strength through struggle. You have 20
Yeah.
minutes to basically pound your head against the wall, and then you can ask someone.
Right.
Um, but I definitely felt that all that taught me resilience, or
Yes.
trying to figure things out myself.
Yes.
But it still was really frustrating to not have enough. It was just hard for the instructors to have enough one-on-one time as well, because sometimes you do everyone sees or works through things, and it's really hard. Like a lot of what I do at Stitch Fix, we do a lot of pairing, so I learn
Yeah.
a lot from pairing with people.
Yeah.
And so I think having a boot camp that stresses more about pairing and working with other
Right.
people that know how to pair and how to show you how to do that is
Yeah.
really valuable, especially for working, like going into the professional like environment.
And that's one of the things that I wish going into those boot camps, that's the main thing that I wish would have happened a little bit more, is that we had people that like really knew how to pair and kind of help me figure out like what questions and what synapses need to fire when it comes to finding the answers that I wanted, because that's still a struggle for me that I have to this day. Like, I'm collaborating on a story right now, a smaller piece of a project that we're working on. And I tell you, I had been researching this for a 2 days, maybe. Like, that was a week ago. And then like, I was like, let me just like throw my hands up and just ask my tech lead. I'm really frustrated. Let's figure this out. And then like, it was just so much better having to have a person be like, okay, so like, where do you think that we should go next from here? And it was like, okay, so let's figure out what I do know and then figure out where I don't know and then kind of intercede and go from there. So that that mindset of figuring out what I do know, what I don't know, that's incredibly important, like going into pair programming sessions. And
And,
I hope that I get better at that, to be
oh,
honest.
totally. And everyone pairs differently, I have to
Yeah.
say. Like, and I think that this whole, I mean, right now I'd love to just debunk this whole myth of experts. They're
Oh my
just,
gosh.
there is no such thing as a tech expert. And so
No.
if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, well, once I have so many years under my belt, then I'm going to know it all. You won't. Like, I can tell you
Right.
for myself, and I can tell you, like, my principals and
Mm-hmm.
architects at Stitch Fix who have been
Right.
10 plus years will be like, every day there are things that I don't know.
Right.
And so it's more about like embracing the process of learning and growing and
Yes.
constantly being humble and open to, like, I don't know this, but I can learn it, and I need to figure out what are the questions that I can ask to get, or what are the
Yeah.
resources, or who are the people that might know a bit more about it that are going to help me get there. And
Exactly.
that's for me, that like letting go of that idea that I need to prove myself, which I think comes a lot with imposter syndrome. But yeah, just being okay with, like, you're okay right now, and then
Yep.
tomorrow you're going to be okay there too,
Yep.
and you're going to be okay a week from now, and
Yeah.
it's okay. Like, you just keep going. Like,
Yeah. And keep going, I think, is the best way to think about it, because I do not show myself enough love to like stop trying to prove myself, like, to this day. It's so just embarrassing sometimes when I don't understand it. I'm learning object oriented programming in Java right now. Like, that is how Java is to JavaScript, like ham is to hamster. It's like they seem like cousins, but no, they are totally different. They act different, like they're categorized different. They're you just everything about these two languages are just so different. And I am a functional programmer. I like the chaos that JavaScript brings, but Java is a beast in itself where everything has to be in order and tidy and this and clean and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, how does anybody get any work done with Java? Like, that is an honest question. How do you get anything done going line by line like this, having to put in little nitty gritty details and then having to have the computer like compile and wait for that? It just, there's so many layers, and I'm just like, why do you guys do this to yourself? And I
Which is
sit
also
there.
why I chose Ruby
Yeah,
and
exactly. I'm
Rails
just
as a
like, damn it, I
framework.
should have done that. That's what I should have done. Like, it's,
I mean, I
I'm
still,
always questioning what is
yeah,
going on. I'm
yeah,
always questioning in Java.
yeah. It scares me to think
Yeah.
about. It's like C sharp, those languages that I just don't.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, I did my
no.
stacks in Python. I did Node, and
Yeah.
I definitely work a fair amount in JavaScript and flip back
Mm.
and forth. But it is like the wild, wild west when you go to the front end and compiling. Anyway, CSS and all of that.
Yeah.
That's a whole uh,
That's a whole other battle.
that's a whole other thing. Yeah. But well, yeah. So let's see. You got through your boot camp.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe we could talk a little bit about you getting your first job, your first
Yeah.
role.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. How was that? Was it what you expected?
No,
Like,
no, not at all. I feel like it was total chaos, but maybe that's like, this is normal for developers that are self-taught and like trying to break into a role. But specifically, I think what made it the hardest is that it took 6 months. I thought it was going to be easy because I had had these two projects I had been working on. They were my babies. I really liked that I was able to accomplish so much with them. But what I realized about interviews and technical interviews and behavioral, like interaction, compatibility interviews, is that there's so many different layers to why people or companies like haven't accepted you. I think that there are a couple of layers to it where I wasn't a fit, I say that in quotes, for the group. I am a Black woman, and you don't see a whole bunch of people like me in tech, which, first and foremost, is incredibly sad. And second of all, it's very isolating. And so, knowing that I wasn't a quote unquote fit for some of the company's needs was very I had started to question my identity, like as a developer. Like, should I even be doing this?
oh yeah.
Is this good enough? But going through, it was six
It's
months
Yeah, I mean
that
it's hard to feel
yeah,
secure when
exactly.
you're not seeing, every day you're not seeing people that look like you,
Yeah.
that you can talk to or relate to, and you
Hmm.
also feel like you can't let them know, even though they know that you don't necessarily fit into their, whatever
Yeah,
recipe.
recipe is a
Yeah.
good way to
you know, you don't want to like let on that you're insecure about this. You're like, oh
yeah,
no, I like, so it makes you go above and beyond to prove yourself,
100%.
which is just, it can be a very unhealthy thing to get
Yeah,
into.
100%, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that was where I had gotten into getting getting so discouraged when it came to figuring out like what jobs that I could apply for. And so I would just like sit for hours and try and get my resume to look as professional as possible, try and put in those keywords and figure out like what I can do to make my project sound like much more interesting and this and that and the other thing. And, I had applied for a good 200, 300 jobs while I was looking, and I maybe got 6 like phone interviews. And then I would say I had 3 technical interviews and then 3 in-person interviews in total, just total over those 6 months. And that was going into, that was July that I graduated from that second boot camp. So into September, October was when I was actually starting to like get that momentum, because honestly I didn't give a crap anymore. I was just like, let me just try this. I'm going to do all of this stuff and just see what happens. What really helped me get to that point and finally secure a job was I didn't rely on one recruiter. And I think that is the best piece of advice that I can give anybody like trying to get into tech, is that you don't want to have to rely on just that one person to figure out all of these job opportunities for you, because they have other obligations, they have other people that they're going to be looking to secure a job for, and that's okay. That's what they do, that's their career. But you can get so much help from different recruiters, and it's just a nice way to just get your foot in the door, to like get yourself introduced somewhere. So
That's
don't limit yourself
That's
to
really
just one.
interesting
Yeah.
because I didn't go the route of recruiter.
Yeah.
I looked into it, but I always felt like recruiters didn't quite understand.
No,
Well,
they
first of
don't.
all, yeah, it's really
Yeah.
hard. Yeah, they get confused with the technology and framework and what people,
Mm,
and that, and then a company posts their wish list, that's
yeah.
like this long for a
Mhm.
position that's like a junior position anyway. And then there's also the fact that they're still in the industry. So we need more tech workers in the US.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. Everyone is talking about how we need to hire, we need to train, we need to
Yep.
educate. Boot
Yep.
camps are doing really well. People are getting into this, but
Yes.
there's still a big gap between what people look for, what companies are willing to look for not only a junior, but
Yes.
also what they're willing to put into training someone to
Exactly.
go beyond a junior and like keep going. And I think
Yeah.
that hopefully is getting better. It's a conversation that at least when I was first starting, it was a really a big blocker, because
Yeah.
most of the times you'd apply and they'd be like, well, you don't have enough experience. I'm like, but I need to get the experience. Like as a junior, I'm like, I'm applying to be a
Yeah,
junior because I
exactly.
don't have the experience and I need,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. Like, how am I ever going to? Because you can build as many projects as you want, but
Yep.
every code base is different, and so unless you're working in that code base and
Yes.
you're not going to really know. I mean, it's
Exactly.
so for me, like I found tech conferences really helpful. I found
Really.
um, so I have a whole thing about searching out the company and the culture that you want to be part of.
Exactly.
Like what I did, a stocking stitch fix, basically.
Yeah.
But, but, but so there's that part of it. But there's also like tech conferences have really great job boards, and it's also a
Mhm.
really great way to network with other people that know
Yeah.
people that can get you past that resume step where you're actually like being heard,
Right.
or that you find out about programs or things that maybe aren't being advertised. So
Right.
yeah, that
I
was
think
something.
that's such an amazing route. I feel like that would be something that I would have done for, if there were just other like conferences that like just came into town more. I know that we have Strange Loop in St. Louis, which is amazing. That is such an amazing conference. But the thing is that they're talking tech and culture, tech and innovation, different things, which is great. Um, I can't say that that's always like trying to find like job fair oriented, which kind of sucks. I think that in the Midwest, we're still kind of that like 10 years behind everybody else. And that can be very discouraging, especially when there's so many like conservative values, quote unquote, when it comes to the office and how that is supposed to go. Your butt's supposed to be in the desk at all times. This,
Although
you're
that
in so many
with
meetings.
COVID,
Oh
that's
my
definitely changing, which
Oh
is
my
great.
goodness. I hope to God, and I really do, because I really like working from home.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I didn't realize that I would like working from home so much, but it's given me the opportunity to start living a little bit more in my own head and start answering questions, asking better questions for myself and answering them for myself without having to like go immediately seek help from anybody. And so I'm learning those problem solving skills a little bit more and just like training my brain a little bit more.
For sure.
That this has really been a good start to level up myself even more. And I really needed 2020 to happen, I guess. A lot of people would say like this is kind of a garbage year, and you're not wrong, but I am very grateful that I'm in an industry where I have been able to work home successfully and start like working a little bit more independently to get what I want. So, yeah.
Absolutely. No, I
Yeah.
love that. We've talked about that quite a bit, like
Oh yeah.
about remote work, and for me, that was the goal
Yeah.
originally, to get into tech, to work remotely, and I didn't have it right off. My first job was not remote, but
Right.
then when got with Stitch Fix, it was, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's amazing to have the autonomy and feel trusted that you're still going to deliver
Mm-hmm.
what you're being asked to do, and you just have tools to connect in different ways. And
Yeah.
now, of course, everyone knows what this is like. Before, it was like trying to explain to
Yeah.
people working remote. They were like, "Oh, so you just work whenever you want?" I'm like, "Well, no, I still work 9 to 5. I
Right.
just like, it's just video conferences and different things, and now
Right.
people get it." But um, yeah, so it might be interesting for listeners
Mm-hmm.
to hear how we know each other,
Yeah.
because yeah, so Sydney and I have actually never physically met, but we've known each other for almost 2 years.
It's been almost 2 years.
Yeah.
That's the craziest thing. Like we were talking about this the other day because like we had planned actually, I was planning to have a couple of trips in 2020, and I was like, oh man, like I have to figure out when I'd be available to like come see Heather and things. Like you've definitely invited me a couple of times, and I was just like, you know what, it's not the year, but 2020 was the year, of course. Hi coronavirus, hello.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I still think that the story is crazy. So I was actually looking at coding. I was looking at a couple of coding boot camps at the time. This was in 2018, and this was before I actually got into that second boot camp that I was telling you about. And so um, I had been vetting it. I had just been kind of like, all right, these are my options. It's this one and this one and this one. And I had happened to see your testimonial on the website, and I was like, okay, I just have so many questions. I don't know who's like there to answer. And to be honest, I don't want to be hounded by any like admissions people. I don't know if this is going to be right for me. So I was just like, you know what? Let me just go find her. Let me just find Heather and just see if she'll like talk to me. I had been looking for you on Facebook, on Twitter, on
See, I'm
Instagram.
not the only one who stalks. I'm not.
No,
When
not
you
at
know
all.
what you want. Okay, wait. Maybe.
Go and get it. Yes, 100%. And I finally found you on LinkedIn out of all places. And I was just like, goodness, I wish I would have brought up the LinkedIn message. I was like, I know
Oh,
you don't know,
yeah.
but I would really love if you could just take some time to answer my questions. I would really be appreciative of it. And we were able to figure out a time, and it was just incredibly lovely. And I am always so grateful for that, because that really motivated me to get to that next step. I didn't pick that particular boot camp that you went to, but in the long run, it was so inspiring to have somebody just be like, yes, we can totally be mentor mentee. Like, we can totally have a conversation about how you're doing. And that just really kept me going through all of just the crap that I felt like I was going through. I felt like I would
Well,
never get a job. It
and
just,
to be fair, I was going through similar crap of
yeah,
being I had just started with Stitch Fix. I was in
yeah,
the QE team and still figuring things out, and when wanting to go into full stack development, but starting off with quality engineering,
hmm,
and so we had a lot of discussions about that as a path, and whether
and
that
that's
was
what
like,
happened.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's
which
what
I think
happened.
for a lot of people, it just depends on the type of testing that you're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a difference between QA and quality engineering,
Yep.
um, and the whole idea of agile process. And I love that you know all about that, and it's exciting when we have those conversations.
Yeah.
Um, but it started off with like you asking me questions like, and you were just a little bit behind maybe in the
Hmm.
path that I was on.
Hmm.
And then it ended up being like, we just kept continuing to have these like great monthly meetings
Yeah.
and sharing notes. And then it just became more of a colleague. Like, I get
Yeah.
so much from our conversations. I learn something every time.
Yeah,
And like,
I do
it's
too.
really, it's become this whole other thing. Like, I don't
Yeah.
need, sometimes we don't even talk at all about work. We just talk about other things. But
Yeah.
like, it's been I think the neat part about that and why I wanted to bring this up was just the idea of like their mentorship is so important. Like, we need
Yes.
people, and I feel like a lot of people really do want to be a mentor or a
Yeah.
or be a mentee, but they don't know how, and unless they're approached with it,
Yeah.
it's not easy sometimes. So I guess I just want to encourage people that reach out. I mean, they might say no or not respond,
Yeah.
but 9 times out of 10, I mean, they might respond, and you might end up developing this really amazing relationship
Yeah.
that will just help guide you and make you feel like, I don't know, just supported through the
Yeah.
journey.
And I
So,
think that with that, like, sometimes some people like don't even need just that like person, like that accountability partner necessarily. They just need questions answered just like in that time. Like, how would I do this? Like, what did you do to get from point A to point B to point C, D, whatever? How do I do this? Or what did you do with this? Just those small questions and those answers
and
that a
also,
mentor can give is just so big.
and also safe venting, right?
Yes.
So we don't even work in the same language framework, anything.
Right.
Like, we work nothing, like we have nothing in common in any way. It's just crazy that we even know each other. But like but the fact that we can talk about like real issues at work that come up,
Yeah.
rubs, issues with management,
Yep.
whatever, issues with other colleagues, where you're trying to navigate, you want to vent, but you're also trying to figure out like,
Hmm.
what's the healthy way? How can I figure out, like, let me get a different perspective on
Yes.
this situation so that I can come back with like this fresh approach. And
Yes.
like, I think it's so critical to have
That
people that
safe
you,
space.
yeah, where it's completely, I don't know anyone you work with that you talk to me about, but like,
Yes.
I'm able to give you like input from leadership training that I've had, or like
Yeah.
feedback loops, or different things that like I learn, and
Yeah.
like, or things that I've gone through. And it just helps to feel like, because you don't, it's really important to be heard and to say how you
Yes.
feel. But
Yes.
then there's also the fact of like, there's feelings, and then there's the actual like, okay, what kind of positive thing can we do with this, or what can we learn? Because
Right.
just me being upset or this happening, that's not going to help anyone. So like, figuring
Exactly.
out how to like transform it, but we all need to be heard. So
Yes.
like, yeah.
And we all need to be feeling valid with our feelings,
Hmm.
not having to, not pushing them down, not having to suppress them, because they're always going to come out in different ways. They're always going to come up in some manifestation, some physical form, some mental form. And I think that that's what's been very great about what I feel like we can talk about often on our calls, is that like I there are sometimes I know that I think now I'm the only woman developer like on like in my department. Like that's incredibly,
Oh, wow.
that's another that's another thing that we'll
Yeah.
have to talk about
Oh,
later. So, but like
yeah.
that's so
That's hard.
isolating. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Just those type of things. It's like, oh my God, how can I navigate this? It's very intimidating to have to think about like, oh, I have to go to these boys about this, I have to do this and that and the other thing. It's layers of that imposter syndrome, of that where do I vet, who do I go to, how do I navigate all of this. And mentors, it it really is about providing a safe space and listening and giving constructive criticism and constructive feedback and
And
being
also,
yeah,
and also just being honest, like,
yeah,
it might not be a good fit where you're at. Like, we've had this conversations too. It's
exactly.
like, does this make sense? Is this making you happy? Maybe we need to start, thinking about different goal paths or different things and like,
Yeah,
brainstorming and looking at other options because, yeah, it is definitely hard. I think that for me, ageism was huge.
yeah,
Even though I don't look my age, I'm very lucky. Um, I definitely was treated. I was asked my age in front of everyone in a meeting.
oh gosh,
I was treated like someone who couldn't figure things out, and it was really really intimidating being my first job.
hmm,
And like I was so determined because I had so much money at stake
yep,
that like I couldn't lose. I had to get
yes,
the learning, I had to suck it up. But
yep,
it was every day walking in a place where people don't want you there.
yep,
And it just really, yeah, I can't tell you how there's something to be said for sometimes you have to suck it up and just get through.
yeah,
But then at some point you have to have a goal to do that. Like for me
yeah,
it was like, okay, I have to have a shining light. Let me find, this can't be the reality. And I literally I actually pinged someone, I pinged an engineer that I
hmm,
didn't know, who is now on Stitch Fix, but she wasn't at
yeah,
the time. And I asked her, and I was like, "You don't know me, but I, am experiencing this. I'm a new, engineer, and is this normal? Is
yeah,
this how I'm supposed to? Is this what I'm going to deal with the rest of my career? Because if
yeah,
so, I had to really rethink. Like, have I made the right choice? Because
exactly,
this is miserable." But she totally was like, no, not at all. Get
yeah,
out. Like, don't, like, get what you need from it to get
yeah,
out and get out. And it's funny now that we're both at Stitch Fix. But yeah, so I think that, yeah, it's not easy.
yeah,
Tech, just like anywhere, isn't easy. But I think that having support,
yeah,
finding mentors, finding a community that may not be the community you see every day, but
right,
like at least you can reach out to and like be like, get a gut check, get a reality check for
right,
what you're going through. Because I think when you're new, you also don't know. You're like,
right,
is it normal that they should be asking me to work overtime and not paying me? Or like, is it normal that I should be feeling this much stress for a project? Is this,
yep,
what exactly what do points in a story mean? Or what do
yeah,
like, all these things that it's really hard to have this conversation sometimes with your teams.
yeah,
So like figuring out what's expected of you and like,
right,
yeah, setting those parameters. I mean, there's just so much, and you learn so much from other people who've had a lot more experience. So,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, um, yeah. Okay, now what? What do you want to talk about?
Oh no! Oh gosh, she's putting this on me. Okay, so I think that we should talk a little bit more about like how exactly we got into tech. We both got quality engineering roles. You were quality engineer, I was quality assurance. And so I would love to kind of talk about like what those mean and how we got into the roles that we are today. So,
Yeah.
ladies, mentors first. How about that?
Okay. So yeah, so there's like it's really different. So okay, my first job, I was hired as a QA Okay. And so I'm thinking, great, because I had only built one project in Ruby on Rails.
Yeah.
It was outside of my boot camp. I still don't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so like I was just grateful that they were going to pay me like, a little bit to sit and like QA stuff because I thought, well, then I'm going to
Yeah.
learn things.
Exactly.
But my first day on the job, they were like, so we want you to build a whole front end testing framework with Selenium and Capybara. Go. And I was just like, I don't even,
Woof.
isn't that a rodent? I don't even understand what you're saying to me
That's
right
a
now.
rodent.
So I'm like Googling, like, what?
Oh boy.
And so that wasn't really a QA role. Actually, I didn't
Yeah.
QA anything. I automated tests for the whole framework
Oh my
um,
goodness.
for the application. Yeah. So that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then, but going into Stitch Fix's QE,
Right.
a lot of the tools that I used, like I introduced regression testing with Percy and
Hmm.
different tools to like help take snapshots
Right.
within the testing framework. And I was able to actually utilize a lot of that knowledge at Stitch Fix
Right.
and implement that in our systems.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
like, yeah, and so I did a lot. I actually, we were a small team that actually tested all of the features on all of the teams. Now that is not possible now. There's only two of us,
Wow.
and now we have grown so large that there is just no way that that was sustainable
Right.
for two people to do. But yeah, we did that. We did a lot of we introduced automation. I wrote automated scripts in iOS and
Right.
or in Swift for our iOS app, and as well as doing a lot of testing and then QA as well. We QA'd
Yeah.
a feature. So it was kind of everything. Like a
Yeah.
team would come to us and be like, we've got this feature we're going to release
Right.
and we need you to, go through it and do a tracer bullet or whatever.
Okay.
So there were, yeah, there, so that was a huge amount of learning for me.
Right.
The, but I definitely, after a year, like I really wanted to be coding more. Like, right.
Yeah.
I really wanted to be getting into Ruby. I really wanted to be
Right.
doing just more full stack. And
Right.
so luckily the opportunity came up where I was able to switch to a team where I started building out features
Yeah.
and really like digging in. And it was definitely a shift because I still, even though I had done all that testing for a year,
Right.
I wasn't writing every day and it
Right.
just it wasn't the same level, I guess.
Right.
So it definitely, it was a bit harder. The good thing, so it was good and bad. So on one
Right. Right.
side, I felt like this is Greek again. But on the other side, because I was on QE and I touched so many teams and so many people and worked with so many engineers,
Yeah.
I was shameless about reaching out to people when I needed,
Exactly.
when I had a
Absolutely.
question. Like I was,
100%.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, you're not in my team, but anyway, hey, can I ask you something? And like,
Yeah.
it was fine. Like I was
Yeah.
because I had already been in everyone's code bases. I kind of
Yep.
understood like what. So so that was a cool part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that definitely was helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that was my experience.
Yours is an interesting experience. I think that I had a similar thing where I had gotten my first tech position as a quality assurance engineer and had absolutely no idea what I was doing with this, but the company was like, we believe that you are going to be great at this. We want to make sure that you have what you need to start learning and start understanding what's going on in our code base, and then we'll kind of see and go from there. And so what happened was that I was on a team where my department was specifically using tools like Ranorex, one of those automation testing suites, where we were writing code in C# on how to start making test cases around what our actual code base was doing. So there were two separate code bases. And we were looking at the automation one that was kind of going through and like breaking the test environment. And then we'd be like, hey, like developers, like go fix this. This is where you might want to start looking, blah, 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 go from there. Then we split off into like smaller agile teams. And as a QA, I started doing a little bit more when it came to looking at the developer code base to understand a little bit more how I could better figure out what was needed for automation tests in my world. And I will admit, I still don't understand a lick of C sharp. I can't stand Ranorex. I think that is the silliest tool in the world, but that's because I don't think that we were utilizing it to the best of our abilities, but that's another story for another day. I do believe, however, that I made a difference because we started scaling our tests a little bit smaller, which was really nice. And I think in general, we started scaling our stories a little bit smaller since we had been separated into smaller teams. And honestly, I got kind of bored figuring out like what bugs were going where. And our development sprints where I was doing the QA, it was either like not enough stuff was coming in or way too much was coming in on top of my extra duties to the automation code base. And so I started spearheading a project where I wanted to figure out, okay, how can we better break up the automation test suites to something that first off I can understand and then help me like teach everybody how to do it. So I started looking into how I can use Cucumber a little bit better. Started looking at behavioral driven development. Started it with JavaScript and then realized we probably can't do that. So I started coding in Java with it. Did I get very far with it? No, but that was because of a couple of other things. We had switched priorities, to be honest. And then I realized that I really wanted to do more like you with coding. I really missed having to break stuff, test it, figure it out, ask questions, and then go on ahead and like trace back what mistakes that I had made and then try and fix the problem and see if it worked or if it didn't work. And so I know we had talked about this so many times where I was hounding my manager, okay, like you got to get me in a developer role. Like, how do I do that? What are the next steps to it? And she was like, be patient. We're going to figure it out, blah, blah, blah. And it definitely didn't happen in like the time frame that I wanted to. It took like maybe 6 more months before like she was like, okay, we can actually like finally transfer you over. But it was in the long run, I had to realize that looking back, that was the best thing for me. I didn't realize it at the time because I was being so impatient, but I had needed to feel a bit more comfortable with the team that I was on to ask questions to. And the mentor that I had had at the time, trying to figure out Java, he wasn't on my team and then happened to transfer on my team. So there was a couple of things that just kind of needed to come together before I was able to start actually coding Java in the code base. Now, also, does that mean that I completely understand development in Java? No, there's no way in hell that I like can say that I am an expert or that I am like at any sort of like level where I'm like, I am badass enough to do this. I still do not understand sometimes when people are like, oh yeah, like what's the method signature in this? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's a function, god damn it. Like, what are you talking about? And I
I
like
think
it's oh
terminology is one of the hardest things for me. It's like
yes,
you're learning
yes,
languages on languages and how to explain the languages in different
yeah.
ways. It's like,
And
it's very,
I
yeah.
love telling people that it's kind of like if you're trying to you're speaking English and they're telling you to start speaking French. They're literally telling you just like fly by the seat of your pants and just like see what comes out. And I'm like, je vais aller vous français. Like I like what are you talking about? I know these words and like let's just figure it out from there. That's exactly how programming is. It's the same concepts as actual spoken language. And so having to fly by the seat of your pants all the time is very interesting, but also that can be very tiring. And so
It can be
I'm,
exhausting. I mean, learning anything new is
yeah,
so exhausting. I think
it's
that's,
just,
you have
oof,
to be kind to yourself. And also, you have plenty of time ahead of you
yeah,
to like keep like I kept beating myself up
Yeah.
for not being at a certain stage already. Like, oh my God, I've been doing this so
Yep.
many years. I should know this already, or I should be comfortable with this. And I finally stopped doing that and
Yeah.
just started celebrating smaller wins of like, TIL. Today I learned this
Yeah.
thing. Today I learned how to set up my bash terminal properly,
Nice.
like, or today I learned like, whatever. I learned a shortcut
Yeah.
that I didn't know this whole time and get or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
Like just little things that trying to keep track of
Yeah.
like all of the little wins and also remember like I do enjoy it. I mean, we've been talking all about this whole thing, but the thing about
Yeah.
coding is like when it works, it's like this puzzle that fits. And
Yes.
when it's green,
And
you just get all
green
this
and the graphics are
adrenaline
nice.
and you're like,
Yes.
oh my God, you could have been like cursing and throwing things like an hour
Yes.
earlier, but now it's working and you're like, I'm ready for more. Like
Yep.
it's the most sadistic
100%.
thing that anyone can do, but it's
I tell
amazing.
people all the time, this is pure masochism. This is that. Okay? Like
Yes.
that is how I feel all of the time in like that weird like non-sexual manner, of course, but like that feeling of that hurts so good. That is why I still do this. That is why I haven't raged quit my job. That is why I have been able to guide myself a little bit further and just give myself that love that I know that, okay, we're going to either figure this out tomorrow or I'm going to ask somebody, or the problem will go away itself. That is a thing that happens where the problem will go away itself. And it's like, oh my goodness gracious, that wasn't even a problem in the first place. It was a blip. It was a blip on the radar. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
There's
it,
so many tricks. There's so many
so
things
many.
like Pole Master again. Like, see what, you never
Oh,
know what,
I needed to restart my local again because my rest servers just like decided not to work today. What? Like,
yeah.
oh, have you just tried restarting your computer? That's the crap that I tell my parents all the time, you know? What are you talking about? I thought it was supposed to be more difficult than this.
Yes. Oh
What?
my gosh. But I want to circle back to something you said earlier that I really
Yeah.
liked, just this idea of making a difference.
Yeah.
Because I think that like the okay, so we've talked about like tech is amazing. It,
Mm-hmm.
it it gives you the upper mobility that I mean, let's face it, like for me at my age
Mm-hmm.
and my level of education being
Mm-hmm.
all in liberal arts, which means like I'm very creatively broke.
Yeah.
And so so I'm like creatively broke. I mean, like I mean, I
Yeah.
literally picked all of the things that won't make me money, like ballet, filmmaking, like
Creatively
music.
broke.
None of these things make money.
Yeah.
So to pay for this, we're doing tech,
Oh,
which is still
Chris.
creative, but it's painfully creative.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
okay.
I get that.
So there's that reason we go into it. We go into it because it's finally an opportunity for us
Yeah.
to break that glass ceiling and make the money that we need to make to actually just pay the bills, just to subsist, not even
Yeah.
be rich, just like
Yeah.
pay for stuff without being
Or do our
destitute
creative pursuits. Yeah.
or pay for our broke. Yeah, exactly. Buy another camera, do
Yeah.
the things. Yeah, exactly. Um, but then there's also we need to be feel connected with what we're doing and we need to feel like we're
Yes.
making a difference. And I think that
Yes.
that like even if you're I mean it's great if you're working for a company where your mission like you're so tied into your mission.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That doesn't always happen with tech.
No.
But you could be working for a great company still,
Yeah.
right? And the idea of like finding ways where you can make a difference and be meaningful, even if
Yeah.
it's on your team, even if it's just implementing a new structure, asking questions, being like,
Mm-hmm.
this has always been this way, but it's a pain in the butt. Now, if I
Yeah.
refactor this, are people going to be cool with that? Is that going to
Right.
help us? Or like just figuring out ways to be like a better steward
Right.
of the code and of like your teams. I
Right.
think like making sure that no matter what you do, it's not just for money, it's not just for fame,
Right.
it's not just for, it's like you want to leave the day feeling like that, that it was meaningful in some way,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Or the week.
You left it
It could have
better
been,
than it
it could have
was,
been like,
you know?
4 out of the 5 days could have totally sucked and you felt like, why am I even doing this? But then
Yep.
that fifth day,
Yep.
everything was like amazing and you launched the thing and you're like,
Yep.
and there we go. I've done something
Yep.
important.
That was exactly how I felt for what, a good maybe 2 weeks. That was the last 2 weeks where I was like, this is garbage. I am garbage. Like everything is going wrong. How is this possible? And then Friday was just like, I don't care anymore. This is it, it started working. I am the universe. I am a godlike figure. Like let's go. Let's do this. And I I felt good having to get that done. And I think that I going back to what you were saying about like educating, I want to be able to leave with doing something better, or just leaving something better than it was. And I want people to understand that you can get into this. You can do this. You really can. And
If you and I can do this, anyone
yeah,
can do this. Like it's
anybody can. And that's hilarious that we've done we've been able to connect, and then I've vetted all of these courses, done this and that and the other thing, and I've been able to intersect my creative pursuits with YouTube. I've had this YouTube channel since college, but finally getting back into it, I was able to start connecting with people more and saying like, it's okay. I'm literally at the same space that you are. I have no freaking clue what I'm doing, but
okay.
let's figure it
First,
out.
first of all, you
Yeah.
are killing it. You're slaying it.
Thank
You make me laugh. Like literally, if you want a creatively broke career being an
you.
actor, you would be an amazing actor.
Thanks.
like yeah, I love it's so entertaining, and but I think just like you were talking about before, how like this period, this COVID quarantine, whatever
Yeah.
2020 nonsense,
Yeah.
how it's like allowed you to tap in more creative into these creative pursuits to give
Yeah.
you like meaning. And I love that you're reaching out. I mean, that was one of the things I really wanted to connect with you
Yeah.
because like I love the idea that you're reaching out and helping other people,
Hmm.
and like I want you to talk a little bit more about what your vision is for that and
Yeah.
how people can connect with you.
Yeah. So I want to make people laugh, and I want for people to learn something. Like those are the biggest two things. I know that I can be bright and bubbly. I know that I can be fairly monotone. It's just kind of the extremes. But you can go to my channel and you can see that I have some semi quality videos that I'm still trying to experiment with, where I am just completely crapping on myself about something just insane, or talking about my experience with COVID, which has been up and down, a roller coaster, loop de loop, whatever you want to call it. And then I start talking about what my experience has been in tech, getting into tech, how I've still been able to get through tech now without having to drink every day, but still with a glass of wine in my hand while I'm talking. So I want people to feel like that this is an intimate conversation that they can learn something from.
And
And
who's your audience specifically? Like who?
who's my audience? I had this exercise actually with my business coach the other day. So she told me to think of a character profile. And so my audience is somebody that is close to who I was when I was maybe 23. And I was in that headspace where I was like, I don't know how to do this. I am still trying to figure out who to talk to, where to go, what classes do I need to take. And I needed that prep, that I needed that pep talk from people, and I just didn't know who to ask. And so I want to shout in anybody's ears that honestly just like need that, like, hey, it's okay, we're going to get through this, because I am right there on that trashy feeling level as you are. and we're just going to get through this. Let me hold your hand. Let me get you a glass of wine. Let's just collaborate. Let's just talk and vent and feel good about where we are now, so we can start leveling up to that next space where you want to go. And
I think I think it's
wow.
really important
Yeah.
because the thing is like we have this notion in our society that there's
Yeah.
people who hold there's gatekeepers with all the knowledge, with much
Yep.
knowledge, and we just need to like find them and then they're
Yep.
going to give us that knowledge. And that's really not the case actually.
No.
In tech it's much different that there yes, there are some people that are definitely seasoned in their fields and they know
Yes.
their niches really well.
Yes.
But in terms of like someone knowing, like every single person can have a different journey, have a
Yes.
different experience, have a different pathway, and
Yes.
still reach success the way that they need to. So
Yes.
I think I love that approach that you're taking rather than being like, okay, I've been doing this for 10 years, so now I'm going to show you how to do it. You're kind of like,
Right.
no, but I'm still successful and I'm still
Yes.
doing it. And we're going
Yes.
to like, let's do this together. And like,
Yes.
I really think that's a really cool
Thank you.
approach. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a let's do it together, just movement. I like to say that it's movement. I'm going to be bold and say that because
Be bold. I wore my shirt, my penguin shirt, just for you.
yeah. Like I realized that I wish that I had more people near me that had made it, just made it, and had gotten developer jobs, because we were just like, all right, we don't know what we're doing, and let's just go from there. And I think that
Oh,
that's
that's interesting.
that's what's
Yeah.
great about my quote once we get there. But I I had needed to condition myself to just sit down and say, all right, let's see what happens. Let's see what amount of BS that I can get away with. And I got away with a lot of BS. I am here. I deem this successful. I am going to be even more successful. I'm going to put it out there into the universe. I am going to find another job that I really like. I like their morals. I like the way that they work. I want to make more money this year. I want to start thinking about working remotely and potentially looking at moving and having another space that's mine where I can do more creative things. So I'm going to just put that little
Yes.
blip out there in the
I
universe and
love
see
it.
what
Put those
happens. Yeah.
intentions out. Put those
Yeah.
intentions out. And something that really like flashed through my head when you were talking
Yeah.
about like other people succeeding with you is that like in my boot camp, I think I only remember one other girl in our
Yes.
group. And
Yes.
the competition was it felt very competitive in that we had to
Yeah.
prove to not only like it's like there was competition between us even of what
Yeah.
how much knowledge we understood as we were going through the and I through the material. And I think that if we could continue to have these conversations and let people
Hmm.
know it's okay to not know, and
Yeah.
that like it's sad to think like how many people have gone through this process and
Yep.
given up,
And
like
have
they've
given up
literally have
completely.
been like I hit the wall and I can't do it, I suck, and I've given up. And
Yep.
it's just so not true. It just means that maybe that wasn't the right language for you, maybe that
Right.
wasn't the right area. Also, we were talking a lot about full stack. There
Yeah.
are all kinds of other roles in tech. There's
Yeah.
management roles. There's project product managers.
Yes.
There's all kinds of stuff where you're not even touching code.
Yeah.
So this idea that I just wish women could be more supportive of other women. I
Yes.
think we just need to say that, like, in other words, like, let's get out of the scarcity mindset of like, there
Yes.
is an abundance for all of us. Like, you,
Yes.
Sydney, are going to do amazing things and like reach all your goals. And I hope I as well will do that in all of my creatively
Not
broken,
I hope, you
uncreatively
will. You
broken,
will.
whatever ways.
It'll
No,
happen.
abundant ways, yes. And we will get to continue this conversation like 10 years
Yeah.
from now, and we'll be like, oh my god, remember when,
Yep.
because I think that cultivating this, getting out of our fear culture, our like
Yes.
there's only one apple in the barrel and like
Yep.
that's it, it's only, you got to be the top of, you got to be this competitive capitalistic mindset. It's
Yes.
just, it's silly, it's unproductive, it doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
And so like I love this idea of like continuing to try to bring those people along with you. And when people
Yes.
get discouraged or are doubting or are afraid, that's exactly the time when you need to
Yeah.
like lean in and be like, let's talk about it. And like,
Yeah.
hey, this is real. Me too. Like, I
Yeah.
literally, like, me too. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep hitting
Exactly.
this. I'm going to slap this keyboard
Yep.
until something works, you know?
Until
And
something
like,
sticks, until something works.
yeah.
Yes.
And then
And
you'll learn
that's,
from it, you know?
you learn, you party, you celebrate, you do a little dance, and then you get back to it because it's those little wins. And you said something along the lines of I believe that it was where we want to make sure that you have a space where we can bring each other along and just come up together. And that's why I have my calendar open. So I'm just going to like
Yes,
shamelessly put in like what
please.
else I'm doing. So give me a call, like schedule a one-on-one with me with your questions, even if it's just like, I have questions about this, I have questions about that. How did you do this? How did you do that? My calendar is open now. And I truly, 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 truly believe that if you just ask the questions, we're going to find a way to get you from point A to point B to point C. I make sure that I make custom study plans for people for 30 days. I'm even following the 100 days of code, that hashtag on Twitter. I'm in a new boot camp. Like, I'm doing more Java development because I'm just like, okay, I am sick of my own BS. Like, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. And God damn it, if I don't figure it out like by the end of this year, then we're going to have to pick a different route and figure it out. And that's okay. I am
There's
totally
always other languages. You can go to the other
exactly.
side.
She's trying to recruit me to Ruby, and
I've
that's
been
totally
trying for a
fine.
long time.
And that might be the case.
She's so determined. I'm like, okay, you go. You have fun with that. Like, poke that bear, see what happens. I
I'm
don't.
gonna figure this out. It's either that or we're just gonna figure out something else, because I love JavaScript and I love working in JavaScript, but I know that there's more that I will need to do to like get that like full stack development experience. So we're gonna figure this out, and
You
Ruby
will.
will be next on my list.
Once, yeah, I'll let you run with it. It's fine. It's. I like to see that tortured look on your face.
Oh, thank
Good job. I'm kidding.
masochism.
I'm kidding.
There it is, folks.
Uh, but
She's
yes,
totally okay with letting me drown. Okay.
oh my gosh. But yeah, absolutely. I'll have all your info in the show notes and the
Yeah.
YouTube notes of just like how to reach you. And it's just, yeah, this is a great time. I mean,
Yes.
people are doing a lot of shifting. Part of why I launched Flipping Dreams is this idea coming, it was born out of the fact that I've had so many different careers, and people
Yes.
kept saying to me like, well, you're just really good at reinventing your life. And I'm like, actually, to me, it felt like a lot of failures because
Right.
it just like, it was like, oh, that
Right.
goal didn't work. Let me try again. Let me
Right.
pivot again. Let me pivot again. But by doing
Right.
that, I've built that resilience. And I'm like, I really, really feel powerful and strongly that everyone can do this, that you can learn
Yes.
from failure, and
Yes.
it can be such a transforming thing. And even like now in this time of like great obstacle, and
Yes.
obviously I'm not minimizing anyone's experience during this time, and
Right.
it's been a vast different experience for everyone.
Yes.
But if you are able to look and embrace the obstacle as an opportunity to learn more, to decide, like if you
Right.
lost your job, okay, well, what areas can I get into? And if I want to work
Right.
remotely, tech is an area. So let me look into this.
100%.
Or, just being able to harness, being able to find a coach,
Yeah.
talk to Sydney,
Yeah.
like bounce some ideas. And if anything, you're going to have a great conversation. So, like,
Yeah.
but you likely learn a lot. And yeah, I'm really excited that we were able to do this because yeah, we talk like this all the time, but it's
Yeah.
exciting to like actually, you know, have other people listen in like flies on a
Yeah.
wall.
And I'm so happy that you were able to get me on the show. Like, this is
Yes.
so incredibly amazing. And I'm so happy that you've been able to do this. Like, you are awesome. You're a badass. You rock. And I always appreciate your time. Just,
Thank you.
this has
Thanks.
been such an amazing relationship. This has flourished I had absolutely no idea people that she would answer. And 2 years later, we're on a podcast together.
Yeah.
What?
This is just the beginning. I mean, who knows what we're gonna, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be here in
Me
this
too.
space. And I'm so grateful to have you as a mentor. Thank you from the bottom of my heart so much for just being there for me when I needed it. Thank you. Thank you.
But
Thank
you
you.
know what, Sydney? Thank you for being open and asking those questions and trusting. Here you
Yeah.
are asking a complete stranger to give advice. So you actually listen to my advice. No, but there is a huge, you know what? It's hard to be vulnerable.
Yeah, it is.
And
It is.
for you to reach out to a complete stranger and be vulnerable and be like, I really, I am looking
I
for
need help.
guidance.
Help.
Yeah. And so again, like I really urge people, like it is a really powerful thing.
It
And
is.
let's all try to be more vulnerable and be more helpful to
Yes.
everyone, like,
100%.
okay, so now I want to hear your quote because you talked about it earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've heard this before, I believe, but there's nothing as unstoppable as a freight train full of fuck yeah. That is by Jen Sincero herself. I
Yes.
love that book, How to Be a Badass. That was what really made me take off and say, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Yep, you got it right there. I have the audiobook. Her audiobook is hilarious. She is just on a roll, and it's like she is like having a conversation in your ear. And she like checked me a couple of times, like I'm driving and I'm like, holy crap, like I'm stopping on the brakes like in the middle of traffic, like, oh, she just like told me the tea, like, woo, like I need to like be aware of this. But what was really profound for me when I was reading that book was that she was saying that see what you can get away with, because once that momentum starts, when people say yes, it is on like Donkey Kong, man. Like you can just have so much momentum, and just cool things after cool things after cool things keep happening. And I have not gotten off that train of fuck yeah yet. I have slowed
Yes.
down a little bit. I stopped for a little bit, and I started trying to gain momentum. And even today, like today was a garbage fire. I have not felt good all day, and now I'm just like, I'm on a podcast, I'm feeling so much better. But
Even trains have to stop and refuel. Like they can't,
yes,
so
yes,
yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I'm still here. I'm still here, and I still want to make sure that I'm helping and reaching out to people. So I am not off that train. Do not get off that train, guys. It's
Nope.
gonna be
It's
fine.
it's an awesome train. Great destinations.
Yes,
And it's
very much so.
yeah, it's COVID safe.
Yes.
No masks.
100%. We're gonna get there, guys. Just hang on a little bit longer with the masks on. I promise it's gonna be fine. Yes.
Oh, that is awesome. That
Yeah.
is great. Well, I can't think of anything that we haven't touched on. I think
Yeah.
that I would love, like, hopefully we'll get some feedback from this show,
Yeah.
and people that are listening, please subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to YouTube. It's all free, and share it to people. And if you want us to, and all of our social media contacts are, going to be included. And if you have any follow-up questions, if you want us to like do a deeper dive in another subject that has to do with tech or just anything, let us know. I'd love to have Sydney back on. This is fun.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Oh, I would love to interview you for my YouTube channel. That'd be so dope. We should plan doing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna like come as a different persona. Like you always
Oh.
play these personas. So like I'm gonna have like there's my dog. What's she, Toddy, what are you doing?
I saw the, I saw the reflection.
I know. I don't know what she's doing. Yeah, I've got to like I'll like have to put on a different accent and like a wig or something. Or like yeah. But yeah, totally.
That'll be great. I would love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Awesome.
excited. That's
Well,
going to happen. It's
that
going to, guys.
yes, for sure. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, I want to.
Thank you so much for listening to Flipping Dreams. I hope that you walked away with a different perspective and maybe were encouraged to try something new. One of the things I'm really passionate about is helping people get unstuck and moving forward into their future. This started off as a book proposal and a book idea that I had that ended up turning into an online course during COVID, during this time of quarantine, to try to help people who were laid off or having a change in their circumstance to figure out how to dream again, how to look at their situation and see a future. So, for a limited time, I will be offering 15% off of my course on Teachable. You can find the link in the show notes with the code to get the discount. Thank you again for listening to this episode. Looking forward to seeing you next week here on Flipping Dreams.